There's so much godliness and yet so much indiscipline that leads us into situations that could have been avoided if we were too godly as we are now, or as Sheikh describes us. So can prayers and fasting really solve the indiscipline and sometimes the sheer wickedness that even in the state of godliness we see?
Yes, thank you very much, Alfred. I will establish a broad-based principle here so that one can understand what exactly I want to address. The first principle I'd like to establish is inspired from Ephesians chapter 3:20, where it tells us that God is able to do more than we can think, imagine, dream, and pray. So for the first time, the Apostle Paul established the principle and put prayer, the power of prayer and the power of thinking on the same level. So prayer, Apostle Paul was telling us that prayer is as important as thinking and planning and dreaming. And so my principle here is that what common sense, Alfred, can do for you, prayer will not do that for you. Okay? What common sense can do for you, prayer will not do that for you. So there is the role for prayer and there is a role for common sense application. Unfortunately, we have been taught in the church and in most places that we think prayers alone can solve our problems. But prayers alone cannot solve and fix our problems. And I also say, Alfred, that our challenge in Ghana and in Africa is more of a governance issue than a spiritual issue. Okay? Let me pick that again. Our challenge in Ghana and Africa is more of a governance issue than spiritual issue. We have weak institutions of state. There is a poor rule of law, poor accountability, poor transparency, lack of inclusiveness. When a government comes into office, then you will find over 4 or 5 million people say, yeah, buying Ewoso. In other words, our government, our problem in Ghana or in Africa is more of a governance issue than a spiritual issue. If we are able to deal with these issues whilst we pray, then we can fix majority of our problems. Like Sheikh said, prayer strengthens the people. It gives the people hope. It encourages them. It strengthens their faith in God. But beyond that, prayer will also lead you to act, to take an action. And the action we need to take must be a love for country, and a civic education, put country above partisan politics, and then public demonstration is part of the action that beyond prayer. Public demonstration, the only language a government understands in the era of democracy is public demonstrations, because public demonstrations gives a government a feedback as to what has to be done. So democracy without public demonstration is not an effective democracy. And the kind of public demonstration is not just a one time. You do it this Saturday and then you go to sleep after 2 months, 3 months, and you put people together. No, public demonstration on issues like what we find ourselves now must be constant and regular until government will feel the heat. So after prayer, you do some of these things so that government will understand what we are asking for and where we are going after.
A very, very important point. So the public demonstration, and so for instance, what we saw last week, you say that after Kumi Preku Reloaded, for instance, there has to be consistent pressure, the demonstration on the part of the people to ensure that the right things are done.
Absolutely. That is the only way by which policies can change. And so when the people see, inclusiveness is part of effective governance. And inclusiveness is also part of the demonstration where the people are part of it. The energy and the zeal for which people go to the polling station, they must have that same energy and zeal to demand good policies and programs from government. So they just don't go to the polls 2 a.m., queue for over 4 hours before they start voting by 6 in the morning. That energy and zeal must be translated in our everyday governance programs. So it is not just one day demonstration. It should be, if you look at the developed nations, sometimes for 1 week, 2 weeks, the people are on the street until government listens to them. You look at that of Sri Lanka, it was a constant for over 2 months, constant until the government has to wake up, to face the reality. So demonstrations is not just a one-time thing. It should be a constant thing till the people get what they are looking for. It's part of the governance system that we have. So beyond prayers, these are some of the things I have outlined that, we need civic education, then to educate people and to make sure that they can take up their responsibility also.
Fantastic point.